After almost 4 weeks of war, Ukraine is holding firm against Putin's army.
Here in Ukraine, we need to fight to survive as a nation.
But resistance comes at a price.
Боже, да за что ж ее так убили? Я не знаю.
Putin's artillery is pounding Ukrainian cities to rubble.
There's been a huge bombardment overnight. It seems to be coming from all directions.
It's under fire right now, and we're just kind of trying to escape, just not to take any risks.
Thousands have been killed. Millions more have fled. How much longer can Ukraine resist?
Ukraine shall overcome this military aggression, shall win this war and restore peace in Europe.
Looking at maps, you know, the only route out is south. And then
I've been reporting from inside Ukraine since the start of the war.
The most hairy bit is just getting across the first series of checkpoints and into the suburbs.
It's late February, and it looks like the capital, Kyiv, may become surrounded. My team and I are being advised to leave.
I think leaving it any later than today feels as though the window might have closed.
A few days earlier, I'd witnessed the first Russian attack on the outskirts of Kyiv. We just heard from some locals that they're Russian soldiers, that the Russians have taken over this airport.
Here comes the helicopter, here comes the helicopter. Yeah. Here comes the helicopter, yeah. Okay, let's go, let's go. Get in the car! Двери!
Since then, the outskirts of Kyiv have seen some of the fiercest fighting of the war. It's kept the Russians out of the city. With the assault on the capital stalled, we head to the front line in the south.
Are we wearing flak jackets?
Yep. Yeah.
On the road, utter chaos. Thousands heading in the opposite direction, fleeing the fighting. As soon as we get to these checkpoints, which are actually quite twitchy places to drive through, there are tailbacks of 15 to 20 miles of people desperately trying to get out of Ukraine, and they're carrying babies and animals and jerry cans full of petrol, and I've never seen a human exodus anything like this before. From Kyiv, our destination is Ukraine's key strategic port on the Black Sea coast, Odessa. Ukraine's third largest city is on edge. Founded by Russian Empress Catherine the Great, it's a special place for Russians and Ukrainians alike. Now, it's being turned into a fortress. We've been through barricade after barricade to get here, along what was once a smart shopping area, up to the Opera House of Odessa, and in front of us, the final barricade. And you can see this is what the Russians would see if they tried to approach this area. The port city is crucial to Ukraine's economy. Much of the country's imports and exports come through here. Capturing Odessa would be a huge prize for the Kremlin. Andrei Zaharadnuk is a former Ukrainian defense minister.
It's a symbolic city. It's a city with lots of history. So they will try to use propaganda to sell this whole campaign. And in their strategic mind, this is the way to control their sea.
Любые звуки, которые происходят днем, ночью, настораживают весь дом.
Alina Drozdova was born in Russia at the end of the Second World War. She's lived in Odessa for most of her life.
Я осуждаю Путина, потому что это нужно быть безумным, чтобы напасть на братскую страну. Поэтому я обращаюсь к матерям, к женщинам Российской Федерации, чтобы не пускали на фронт и чтобы не убивали граждан Украины.
Alina, like many Ukrainians, has family in Russia. They've bought into Putin's line, this is not a war, but a special military operation to liberate Ukraine.
Я слушаю в том числе и российское телевидение. У меня есть родственники в Москве, они одурманены. Они говорят, что Путин борется с нацистом. Где тут нацисты? Найдите хоть одного нациста.
Putin's aim is to control the entire southern coast, to create a stranglehold on Ukraine. 3 weeks ago, his forces attacked the town of Kherson, 120 miles away from Odessa.
They're telling people to stay inside, shooting in the air. You hear the sounds.
It's difficult to get into Kherson. A local journalist tells me what happened. For his safety, we're not identifying him.
In the first hours, around 20 local people tried to stop the Russians. But it was an uneven battle. They were only armed with Molotov cocktails and maybe some light weapons. They were all killed almost immediately.
The tanks roll in and the Russians take control. Trapped inside the city, our contact starts filming for us. He meets Angelika, who'd been looking for her son, Yuri.
Мы с мужем приехали сюда, было где-то 2:30, да, дня. Мы обнаружили сперва вот эту яму, воронку. Ну, сейчас засыпало. Где-то вот здесь. Вчера было все в крови, было видно.
The blood is her son's. She found his body nearby.
И его вот именно разрывом мины, во-первых, его разорвало на мелкие части, на 2 крупных, верхняя часть и нижняя.
Yuri died trying to get his family and neighbors to safety.
А вот сюда, вот в это укрытие они бегали, прятались. Вот туда он отвел беременную невестку и внука. Внуку 4 года. Потом он вернулся за девочкой, ну, их подруга, у которой муж в командировке. А он ее и ребенка тоже отвел в подвал. И вышел еще раз. Ну и вот здесь он погиб. Вот. Хочу обратить ваше внимание, что мы находимся в жилом квартале. Здесь нет ни одного промышленного объекта, даже ни магазина, ни детского сада, ни школы, только жилые дома.
Kherson is cut off from the rest of Ukraine. Medicine, water and food are in short supply.
Сегодня уже без 29 утра. Я думал, что я пришел рано, но я понял, что я пришел вот почти поздно. Еле успел взять последнюю картошку без фуры.
It's the first major city to have fallen to the Russians. Its people, armed with nothing more than flags and insults, have become a symbol of Ukrainian defiance.
Україна! Понад усе! Героям Небесної Сотні двічі! Слава! Слава!
Украинский народ нельзя трогать. И невозможно его завоевать. Это просто невозможно. Потому что история много раз это подтверждала.
That spirit of resistance is going to burn ever hotter the longer the Russians stay there. We're watching these unarmed civilians protesting in the face of Russian weaponry, and the Russians appear to be paralyzed, not knowing what to do about it.
But today the mood changed. There was panic as the Russians fired round upon round of warning shots. Back in Odessa, they're determined to avoid the same fate as Kherson. The beach is laid with mines. With the Russian Navy positioned off the coast, they're worried about an amphibious landing and the ever-present threat of missile strikes.
Where? Coming from the ships?
Ships is.
Yeah.
Russian ships.
We're taken to an air raid shelter deep underground.
You know, these are elderly people in a really cold cellar, and they might have to put up with that for hours. They've got no food and no water. Yeah, it's unimaginably bad for them, really.
This time, it's a false alarm. Later that night, the attack is all too real.
It's a couple of minutes to midnight, and we heard 3 or 4 what sounded like fairly large crumps over in the background, and we're told that actually it was the Ukrainian military bringing down 3 or 4 Russian missiles which were coming in over this airspace.
The next day, people escaping the Russian bombardment arrive at Odessa's train station. They're trying to head west to safety.
We've seen several busloads of refugees from just to the east of here, and there are more coming. It's just endless, carrying dogs and belongings that you can see down there.
Inside the station, we meet Nicole and her mother, Yulia. They're fleeing a place called Mykolaiv, a frontline city 80 miles up the road. Russian forces are trying to surround it.
It's under fire right now, and we're just kind of trying to escape, just not to take any risks. It was just 2 weeks of not sleeping well, and just kind of like not being able to leave our house safely. We were afraid that our city will be surrounded, and we won't want to be able to leave.
Where are you going to? Germany. Do you think that you will ever return?
Yeah, definitely. We didn't escape there just because like we will have felt like it. We just kind of had to.
We estimate that in addition to the 3 million people from Ukraine who've become refugees, there are at least another 2 million inside who are internally displaced, and at least 12 million people inside Ukraine who are affected by the war and in need of support. So the numbers are staggering.
Children, pensioners, no one's spared. Irina and her family had been planning their escape from Mykolaiv for days.
Там происходят ужасные вещи. Наш дом обстреляли, вылетели окна. Один снаряд попал в бабушкин дом, пробил стену. Ну, дом пока еще не развалился, но очень страшно.
So your mum, this is your mum here?
Ее попал снаряд, потому что ее дом оказался самый первый.
How did your children deal with this?
Жутко, очень жутко. Это очень страшно. Мы все кричали, нас всех. С 24 числа нас трясет каждый день. Мы в бомбоубежище, с бомбоубежища, туда-сюда. Ну, как бы вот так, очень страшно, очень страшно. А потом быстренько собрались и убежали.
Irina's home city of Mykolaiv is now all that stands between the Russian advance and Odessa. Almost surrounded, we head there on the only safe road in. we find the bombed-out remains of the apartment block she and her mother have just left behind.
So this is the block, and you can see the damage up there. Imagine that in the middle of the night, that just hitting your apartment out of the blue. You can smell the burning.
A neighbor is still here. He takes us inside.
Was anybody in here at the time?
Кто-то находился дома, когда случилось? Да, мама была здесь.
And it looks like it came in through here.
Зашел тут снаряд. Снаряд на пятом этаже вошел.
And then set everything on fire.
На пятом этаже, и он вниз пошло гореть вот это все по балконам. Ну, видимо, осколки посыпались с пятого этажа вот это.
Mykolaiv is a city of nearly 500,000 people. Every night, curfew and total blackout.
This is the hour when nobody else is allowed on the street, yeah?
Yeah.
This is one of the men in charge of defending the city, the mayor, Alexander Senkevich. Usually dressed in a suit and tie, he's now permanently armed.
Oof. Was that incoming or outgoing?
Sounds like outgoing. So, this is my office.
If they do take this, and I know you'll fight hard to keep it, but that's the straight road to Odessa, isn't it? And that's what they need.
Yeah, so they need to occupy the southern part of Ukraine, so that's the exit to the sea.
Mayor Alexander has one of the most dangerous jobs in the country. Other mayors have been targeted by Russian forces, abducted and even killed.
Every time I go out, I think this is my last time.
Mykolaiv is coming under increasing Russian fire. Footage of this missile strike was posted on social media. We find the street that was hit and Mikhail, who lives here.
Тут убили мою жену, лежал, тут снаряд упал. Она ни в чем не виновата, но это хороший такой человек. Как так можно?
So sorry.
Боже, да за что ж ее так убили? Я не знаю. И внучек меня убила, блин. Ай-яй-яй-яй-яй.
Mikhail believes it was a Russian cluster bomb that killed his wife.
Вот кассетная, эта бомба упала, и как раз она бежала, там и накрыла ее, а я вот там упал. Боже мой.
I'm so sorry. What was her name?
Людмила. Она любила всех. Ну как это так? Ну как? Скажите мне, как?
We've been told we have to leave this area immediately because the people who are escorting us say there's been a lot of booms just down the road here.
That same night, Mykolaiv was hit hard again.
It's 5 o'clock in the morning, and there's been a huge bombardment in Mykolaiv overnight, and it seems to be coming from all directions. From northeast and south, so there's only west really that's left open. And my worry is if we leave this too long and try and stay here, the whole city's going to be surrounded.
That's exactly what happened to the city of Mariupol, 300 miles east along the coast. Most people here speak Russian.
До начала войны город Мариуполь – это был мирный, процветающий город Украины. Город, в котором 99% русскоговорящего населения, такого как я. Моя дочь, она училась в русской школе в городе Мариуполе.
Pavel Gomziakov is a photographer. He escaped Mariupol last week with his wife and child. His parents stayed behind.
Вот мы никто не могли поверить, что на нас в это время могут вот так вероломно напасть. Мы все шутили, мы не верили, что это может быть. И в один момент вдруг мы проснулись в новой реальности. Началась жуткая война.
People here are enduring the worst of this war.
For last week, we were not able to count number of deaths. So our last number was 2,358. In my opinion, it's 2-3 times more at the moment. They destroy all electricity infrastructure. They destroyed pumps for water supply, for sanitary system, natural gas supply, so everything.
Sheltering underground, local journalist Artyom Popov recorded this message.
People have nothing to eat and drink. Today, a friend of mine who was driving in search of food said that a woman with a child rushed into cars and asked for food for her little son. Russia bombs the city and civilians every day. Today there is complete destruction of Mariupol.
And they want to take Mariupol in any way, for any price.
When Mariupol's defenders stood firm, Putin's forces changed their tactics.
He's falling back on Plan B, destroy the cities, rubbleize the cities, starve the inhabitants, and take control that way.
For every bombed building, more stories of suffering. The maternity hospital, the historic theatre, and countless homes.
There's been already lots of war crimes, so I believe that at some point of time they decided that it doesn't matter how many. It's very difficult to describe it with words.
We're extremely concerned with how the war is devastating civilian populations across Ukraine, in places like Mariupol. What we've already seen with children, with women coming across the borders into neighboring countries, is that they are deeply affected, and possibly for the rest of their lives, with what they've experienced.
Maria Butina is an MP for Putin's ruling party. She was jailed in the US in 2018 for being a Russian agent.
Russians do not kill civilians. Russians do not bomb civilian objects.
I saw.
So you can only prove. You can only talk about proven information.
So it could be the case that Russians are killing innocent civilians?
No, Russians are not killing the civilians.
I am feared to think what may happen with residents of Mariupol. This needs to be resolved somehow, because otherwise we're going to see a 400,000 people tragedy.
І я хочу, щоб мене зараз почули всі. Почули особливо в Москві. Настав час зустрічатись, час говорити.
Presidents Zelensky and Putin are yet to meet, but their negotiators continue to talk.
Any war is ending with a deal, and this deal will take place, but nobody can now project the timelines, because the timelines are basically depending on the level of compromise Russian Federation would be ready for, and the red lines for Ukraine are absolutely clear at this stage.
Ukraine has conceded it's unlikely to join the West's military alliance, NATO. But it rejects Putin's claims on Crimea and eastern Ukraine and insists he withdraw his forces from the whole of the country. That's something President Putin's unlikely to accept.
И мы видим, как героически действуют и воюют наши ребята в ходе этой операции.
There have been many Ukrainian military successes. The Russians were pushed out of Voznesensk, a small town north of Mykolaiv, after a vicious battle.
So this that we're walking on now was Russian-controlled territory until just a couple of days ago. You can see from the Russian tank tracks the very point that they get to before the people of this town managed to repel them back up the road after 3 days of fighting.
2 weeks ago, Russia said 500 of its soldiers had been killed. It's given no update since. Ukraine says the figure is now closer to 14,000. In Voznesensk, dozens were killed.
So the Russian soldiers who were killed in this battle, their bodies were collected afterwards and they were brought to this train here, this mortuary train. How many Russian soldiers do you have in here?
6. И будет что подвозить.
They've attacked on multiple axes, and that needs careful coordination and timing. And of course, by spreading themselves so thinly, they've been unable to really concentrate force. They overestimated their own capabilities, they underestimated the Ukrainians. But I think we should just remember one thing: the Russians will be quick to learn from this.
In Mariupol, Russian tanks are in the city, but its leaders are refusing to surrender. And in Mykolaiv, an army barracks has been destroyed, killing scores of Ukrainian soldiers. The war is getting closer to Odessa. Alina and her neighbor Svetlana are refusing to leave their home.
Если начнется бомбежка, все приготовлено, у каждого соседа все приготовлено. Каждую минуту это вторжение России реально в Одессу. Трагедия. Трагедия, большая трагедия.
Above ground, Odessa's streets are tense but peaceful for now. But in this war, unleashed by President Putin, nothing remains certain for long.
Examining the war in Ukraine from every angle, join Victoria Derbyshire and guests for Ukraine Cast. Listen daily on BBC Sounds.